Good afternoon, everyone. This is Randy Gottfried, Director of Classroom Support Services. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this campus budget update. It's probably the first time I'm seeing some of you for the new year, so I want to wish you all a happy new year, and I hope your winter quarter is off to a good start. We'll get started this afternoon. We have a presentation, and then we'll go on into questions and answers. So I'll turn it over to you, President Roberts.
About that, it's muted. Welcome everyone. Thank you, Randy, for also your welcome remarks, and welcome to winter quarter. It's a kind of a gray day today, but it's always great to see so many of you joining us for this update. I just want to say that who would have thought 10 months ago that we would be remote for so long, and yet we have weathered that unbelievable, unexpected way to provide service to our students. And we've done it in unexpected ways, from our kitchens, as I am, our living rooms, bedrooms, sofas, but we've done it with unwavering resolve for our students. And for that, I am so appreciative and so grateful. Just a week ago, we had a new administration begin their work, and where we talk a little bit about some of the things that we've already seen in terms of evidence to support community colleges and our communities. But we also had that scene juxtaposed with an embattled Capitol. And yet on the 21st, we heard words of reconciliation and restoration in the belief of what we all hold so important and so dear, our American values of democracy. And so it was heartening to me that at our meeting in December, we heard similar calls for coming together and in times that are very difficult. And that's not to say that the decisions that we had to weather with the budget reductions associated, not just with the COVID-19 enrollment changes and shifts, but also because of the change in the allocation model that required us to continue to grow to a certain level that we weren't able to do. Those were hard decisions, and not ones that will easily be forgotten, nor should we, because each person that lost a position with us was a dear colleague. And we want to make sure that we don't start this year a notice that we have fewer people who are here because of those decisions, those very difficult decisions that were made. But we did it in collaboration and cooperation with our unions. Not that they agreed with the decisions, but they did come together to help to ensure that we had fewer people who were impacted. And again, one person impacted meant a livelihood and a person that we cared about not being here. With that said, we have a lot ahead of us that we have to focus on, and we know discord, and we know that disagreements will happen in the future, but we're hoping we can do it in a respectful way, in a way that helps with us with real solutions. We have real problems that we've got to address, and we heard some of them at the winter retreat that was shared in terms of data about the successes our students are having in some of the areas where we have longstanding situations where students are really struggling, and we have to deal with that head on, and we want to, just like we want to have questions head on, and we want to do it in a way that continues to bring us together. One of the immediate things that I'm really looking forward to that will help us with demonstrating again collaborations that we saw toward the end of our time in 2020 has to do with finalizing the disbursement of the high demand dollars that we have only until the end of this year. And so we look forward to having that reopener and those negotiations with our faculty leader partners and dispersing those dollars before June 30th. It's important work, and I know we can come together and get that done. So with that said, I just want to say thank you so much for what you do every day. You create the Shoreline experience, as I always say, whether you're wherever you are in your home or on campus, you're helping our students. And we heard one of them last night who received the Transforming Lives who is living in the residence hall, who's a member of the Honors College, who talked just so eloquently about her experience and how life-saving and transforming it was for her to be here. And she's got a great trajectory, not just to receive her associate's degree from Shoreline, but to go on and get a baccalaureate, master's, and hopefully even a PhD. She loves learning, and she had it reactivated and re-energized here at Shoreline because of all the work that we do. So Randy, I'm going to shift our conversation now to some updates, and then we're going to move into our questions and from the campus. So would you mind putting up the PowerPoint? Thank you so much. All right. So the first person, Mary's joined us, Mary Burrows, who is the Dean of Health Occupations and Nursing, but also is our spokesperson for COVID. And I've got some other updates as well, but we're going to start with COVID, if you wouldn't mind, Mary, giving us an update.
Sure. We continue to be very, very fortunate in that we have very few cases of COVID on our campus. As we are right now, we have one case that happened several months ago of transmission of COVID on the campus. But other than that, we have had very, very few positive COVID cases. And I feel really fortunate. It's much lower than I thought it would be, and we continue not to have any cases in the residence hall as well. We're facing a new challenge with COVID, with the new variants that are coming out, and we're not quite sure yet how that's going to impact, other than we do know that the UK variant is much more easy to transmit from person to person. So we just need to make sure we're doubling down on those, washing our hands, keeping our distance, wearing our mask. We are complying with the governor's recommendation for requiring a 14-day quarantine for out-of-state travel. And that will continue through January 31st. And then hopefully at that point we can have staff come back to campus that are authorized and have been before. We have a new COVID phone line for getting general COVID information and also for reporting a COVID incident or suspicion. That's in addition to the report form that is found on the intranet. What else would you like me to mention, Cheryl?
Well, I heard from Dr. Fauci that we should be thinking about double masking because of the acceptability. What thoughts on that?
Right. So double masking is a very appropriate method for just increasing the number of layers of filtration that the air is going through between our mouths and someone else's mouth, the inhale and the exhale. So it certainly is appropriate to wear a double mask. The recommendation is not to go for the N95s unless they are fitted to your face and tested to make sure that they are actually keeping the airflow contained. They really do not provide any more protection than a double layer mask, which is the standard. And so yes, he is recommending that we consider doing 2 masks.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I would just say that we're looking at remote operations as we go back to what we consider remote operations at Shoreline, which is some on campus, which are authorized, people coming on campus who are authorized, but keeping most of our operations remote through spring term.
I think it's going to be really important that we continue that very careful consideration of anyone who's coming on campus, because we're not going to have a vaccine that is widely distributed in the near future. We're facing a situation right now where we have more people who are eligible to receive the vaccine, and yet from what I'm hearing, there is no vaccine in this state. And so we're at a standstill for moving forward on that until we can get that vaccine flow again. So it's just critically important that we maintain, as hard as it is, to maintain this environment. It's so important.
Thank you so much. And of course, I'm sure there'll be more questions, so thank you for staying on with us.
You bet.
Next slide, please, Randy.
Hello, everybody. Good to see faces on the screen today and hear voices, as we'll hopefully have some questions later on today. I'm here to give you some quick updates from Office of Student Learning and Students Equity and Success. And if you can move to the next slide, Randy. So currently, as a relationship to Students Equity and Success teams, and specifically here at Enrollment and Financial Aid, this is similar to the update I gave last time, and maybe given to later in the presentation around CTC Link work. This is impacting you. You certainly know it. Some people know it's happening and aren't aware. It's a substantial amount of work that is impacting the teams. If any of you were in larger college conversations about hearing what other colleges are going through, well, we've just begun what other colleges are going through. And there's a tremendous amount of work that's going on right now that all of the staff, mostly in financial aid and enrollment, but other areas of the campus as well, they're pillars in HR, in our finance team, and they all have to go through training. So there's mandatory training that is required that they have to go through for us to take the next step, which is we're in FitGap, which is identifying the difference between that which we want to turn on in the new system and what the gap is in terms of our process and systems. They're going through that now. It'll continue for several more months. Again, we're looking for a launch of the new, using the new system in about 1 year. That's our current date. We do have several people who've reappeared. So you may hear someone, names like Chris Melton or Satoko being used because they're back and they're helping with the project. We anticipated this, that was built into a budget to support CTC Link, but they're here specifically because this is the heightened part of the work where that training, fit gap, process, change of systems is really heightened over this next year. So Chris is specifically supporting the work in enrollment and financial aid, a lot of the academic components of the setup of the system, Satoko on the financial side, and then Veronica in HR also has some additional assistance. And then as an aside, we continue to issue emergency aid. As a reminder, I don't have a number here, but if you remember correctly, in the spring, we were issued $1.2 million in CARES aid to be used for students. We set that up so that it was spread out over the course of a year that included summer, fall, winter, and spring. We're now in winter. For fall, we had a goal of issuing about $550,000 in aid. We didn't make that goal. So believe it or not, we have some strict parameters around the issuance of the aid. But we did double down on our effort. I believe we had I heard up to 1,000 applications for aid coming over the holiday break. And we have a very small team trying to process that aid very quickly to issue aid to students as quickly as possible and support them in addition to the other resources they already have. I'll leave it at that. Both SL and SES teams are working closely together on strategic enrollment management initiatives. I would say, and there may be a more presentation in the future, but a lot of our work this past year and as we move forward into next year will be around setting targets. So establishing targets on specific markets and then developing marketing communication tools and resources around those markets. So we emphasize growth where we want growth. That's one. One of our specific strategies I mentioned again last time is conducting more financial aid outreach. As a school, we have a slightly smaller percentage of students who fill out the FAFSA and complete it. And so that's a marker for colleges to then say, often having resources like financial aid is the thing that makes students make a choice to then go to school. So if you can do more outreach to encourage people to fill out the application, which if some of you have ever had to do it, a lot of you have, it's not as easy as anyone thinks. And so people get stuck and don't complete it. But it's one of our goals. Then if more completers there means potentially more students who will enroll. And the last thing is we continue to do refinements. And again, the teams in enrollment and financial aid are probably the most significantly impacted. But as a college, you may continue to see some additional adjustments to the team where there are positions that may be reframed or changed, working with HR as needed. But currently, the biggest changes you may see is we have a closed search for the Director of Enrollment and Financial Aid. It closed on Monday. The team will begin doing their interviewing, and hopefully we'll have a person in that position somewhere in early spring quarter. And from there, you will then potentially see some of the other changes in the team if needed. But again, they're in the middle of CTC Link. So we may hold on some of that just because they have a lot of work. You may see some other small changes in the advising floor as a relationship to outreach and recruitment that are coming, and those will be announced as they occur. Next slide. From an instruction perspective, that's what I mean when I say the SL team. We're currently finalizing summer and fall schedules. I did share this bullet both briefly with the Union Federation and with your Faculty Senate reps, and that's a conversation with the deans. That was initiated out of ET, which is what do we want summer and fall to look like? Right now, we're looking probably that summer is predominantly still remote. We have not made that decision. I am not making that decision here. That's not mine to make. But we're thinking we should based on all other sources of evidence. We are looking at fall in a unique way that could we return in a modified in-person format or synchronous? More to come on that. We know we have to make a decision soon. We're currently in the middle of a request process for instructional equipment. Those came from each of the units. The deans are vetting that and making some decisions in the next week. We're currently in the middle of a request process for full-time faculty. I know that in the middle of a budget changes, that may be complicated, but we do have reserved budget lines for positions, especially as they become vacant due to resignations that are not all swept. When people leave, we don't relieve the budget of every position. So we will see some new or replacement positions being posted in the next couple months. And one of our big jobs right now is assessing online instruction. How is it going? Getting student feedback. We did it once. We probably need to do it again. And we probably also need to, and we will be working on a survey, some kind, working with faculty about how is it going for them? What would they like to see? What would they like to see in a return in summer and fall? The last thing is our Guided Pathways team continues to do work. Again, we have a core team of faculty, co-leads of Dr. Dutch Henry and then Bridget Nolte, working with 6 teams, each with a co-lead relationship of faculty and administrators, 6 different projects. In the winter, you will see most likely 1 opt-in session, a date soon to come out to all of you. And in spring, you'll see 1 all-campus event. It wouldn't be any longer than an hour or an hour and a half. We will be sending out positions for requests for positions for the team again for next year. We're not sure about total budget, as we're really not sure about total budget from the state, but we'll still be working on this project as it is a multi-year project. The last thing is that as a part of every college process, each college gets external Guided Pathways coaches. And we have Dr. Jean Hernandez. And if some of you have been here for a while, Jean was a former dean at Shoreline, a former president at Edmonds, and now is working in a capacity as consultant. Samantha Dana is our beta counterpart at Clover Park. And they're going to guide us on some specific ways to look at our information. And there you go. With that, I will turn it back over. I believe the next slide is somebody else. Dr. Roberts.
Yes, and thank you so much. I appreciate it, Vice President King. Next slide, please, Randy. I have the first piece, and then Vice President Beck will have the second. Just some updates on our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Really working hand in hand with our Inclusive Access Steering Committee. They're moving forward a lot of the DEI recommendations that were shared at the beginning of fall term, including some recommendations about our land acknowledgement language. We saw the first draft. It's just really well done, and it's really breathtaking to see the expanse of it and how to utilize it across different domains and instruction, and how we on our website, all kinds of things. And so we look forward to bringing that to the campus during the day of learning and before then, and how to use it. We also are working on a joint and collaborative web page where all of our DEI work lands, because right now it's sort of in different places, and so it makes sense to do that. We're working with the Inclusive Excellence Steering Committee and Communications and Marketing. And also they're working on better understanding the Inclusive Excellence model, and we have a pioneer in that area at a university, and they're going to be coming and talking with us and partnering with us on that. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Learning Team is working on the theme for the Day of Learning, and they did present it to the executive team, and they're moving forward. It's quite a dynamic theme, and we're looking forward to seeing more as things move forward with them. There will be a request for proposals. We'll be going out to people who also presented proposals last year and explained the theme and how it's been expanded to include what's happened in the past year to make it relevant and responsive to where we are. And there will be also hopefully some professional learning that will go along with this that will support us into the Day of Learning. And then what is happening with the Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? So we did open up the recruitment during the what is the appropriate academic schedule for a position, and it did close. We do have a very good caption of great people to look at, and the first round of interviews with the screening committee will happen in February with hopefully we'll have toward the end of the month our traditional campus interviews, which will be remote with a Zoom hall forum that we're used to where people can come and ask questions, and hopefully we'll have a decision early, either late February or early in March. So all things moving forward with that. Next slide, please. And that's yours, President Beck.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. So we're going to do a budget update next, kind of looking at where we are today compared to this year's budget. And then we're going to take a look forward at the budget preparations for the coming fiscal year. So to start with, this is our cash position. We have almost $21 million in the bank. This looks different than it has for a few years because we actually paid off the traffic circle contract to the city of Shoreline. So there used to be $1 million in that second account that now contains $1,000. So we received the release from the city of Shoreline, and we were able to transfer those reserved funds into our general account. On to the next slide, please. So for this year's budget, we are about halfway through fiscal year 21, and our actual revenue and actual expenses are tracking to about half of the yearly budget. So we did some significant budget reductions, and we are tracking well to that budget. There are currently discussions. It's all of the information still, believe it or not, we're more than halfway through the year, and not all of the information is still in from the state yet. There are still discussions at the legislative level to reduce our allocation for fiscal year 2021. They're still finding ways to do reductions, and we're waiting for maybe in June we'll know for sure when the year is done and they can't take it back anymore. But so far we have our ear to the ground with all the different legislative information. In this year's budget, we budgeted to have enrollment down 10% on average, and we were actually down 12%. So enrollment is a little bit lower than what we budgeted for. And for winter quarter, we are also trending at about 12% down. International education is down even more. It's down 27%. And domestic is down 12%. these enrollment decreases for this year represent about $2.9 million in lost enrollment revenue. But that is reasonably within the budget that we made. We're not too worried about it. We pretty much budgeted for 10%. It's only a 2% variance there. So I think we're going to be okay. And then looking forward, the horizon for COVID keeps stretching out. Remember, a year ago, we all thought we were going to be back at our desks in May or June. And here we are a year later. And that horizon for COVID kind of keeps extending a little bit. The vaccine is here. We're very hopeful that we're going to see an end to it maybe this year. In the meantime, the federal government does continue to provide some kind of relief, money relief to the organizations. And there's a second tranche of CARES funds that came out. And it's, instead of being called CARES Act, this is the CRRSAA or CRESA Act. And it's a larger amount of money, which is a big relief. Shoreline's share for institutional funds is $3.4 million. And the student relief is the same amount that it was last time. It's an additional $1.2 million for student relief. And also looking forward to COVID effects, our housing occupancy remains low. It's about 38 to 40%. It suddenly dropped with COVID and then has kind of been bumping along at the same level for pretty much the entire pandemic. But also that level is within the safety parameters from the Department of Health guidelines, which is why we so far have been so fortunate to not have any COVID cases within student housing. Next slide, please. So here is a brief look at the year-to-date numbers for the budget. We have the type of category, revenues and expenditures. The first column of numbers is the budget. The second column of numbers is our actual expenditures through December 31st. And the third column is the amount of funds remaining in the budget. And the fourth column is the percentage of the budget that is remaining. So what this tells you, if you look at the total revenue lines, and there's 55% of the revenue budget left to go, that means we're a little bit behind on collecting the revenues for the year. And that's to be expected. If you look up to the state appropriations line, we've only collected 40% of our state appropriations so far. There's generally a bit of a lag on when those funds come in. So that's entirely expected. And then our expenditures, our total expenditures, there's 52% of expenditures left to go for the year. So we are trending slightly below 50%. Next slide, please. So looking forward, we are starting the process of budgeting for fiscal year 22. And some of the things that we are keeping front of mind as considerations as we prepare the budget are what are the effects of the state's allocation changes going to be? What is the enrollment looking like? How is COVID going to affect us? And what else is out there? So with the potential allocation changes from the state, they are predicting allocation reductions again this year. Not anything like what we saw last year with that precipitous drop that was so alarming. This is some more specific reductions, but not a 15%. So we're planning for those. And those reductions include, they may not fund the COLAs for fiscal year 22, and that could have an effect of $1.5 million. They're talking about maybe reducing next year's allocation for the COLAs that were granted this year. So how they mix it between years, I don't know how they come up with that, but the COLAs we gave this year, they may take away from our allocation next year. And that's $500,000. And then there are healthcare increases coming up next year that the state is possibly not going to fund. And that's another $500,000. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Let me just clarify something since we're right there. They're thinking about
Mhm.
taking it back out of this year. So we're in a biennium. They're thinking about taking those monies out of this biennium, not next biennium. So they're thinking about taking the COLA that was given out of this allocation year, not
Okay,
next.
I heard it both ways. I heard it both ways, and I may have been mixed up on one of them. So that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be one of the things where they're still talking about reducing our allocation this year. That makes a little bit more sense. They're not mixing the years. Thank you. So then moving on to enrollment. We're expecting enrollment to continue to drop a little bit, not a lot, not the significant drops that we saw in the last year. But from everything we've heard, it's not seeming like the economic recovery is to the point yet where we'll see that enrollment spiking back up. The trend from the last economic downturn was that it took 2 to 3 years for enrollment to increase after the first drop in the economic downturn. So we will continue to project. At this point, we're looking at possible slight decreases year over year, and with a more significant decrease in international enrollment due to how the political situation has closed the borders and kind of damaged our international reputation, which is affecting our enrollment. And the international enrollment does have a more magnified revenue impact than the domestic enrollment. And then COVID and CARES. So we did receive that additional $3.4 million, which is a big relief. It will go a long way towards helping through this economic downturn, but it doesn't completely alleviate all of the additional costs that we have because of the pandemic. Some of which are just general COVID costs are estimated to be about $1.6 million a year. And then we have these other costs of unfunded labor and health insurance, which is another $2 to $2.5 million. Then if we're looking at other things to consider for the total budget going forward, is the legislature is in the process of approving a really large increase in capital construction projects, the largest amount of capital that anybody can remember is going through on its way to be approved. We're hoping that that's going to be done by April or May. And we have a couple of really large projects on there. And so there would be additional funds for capital projects that does not affect our operating account. So we can't use that for salaries or utilities or anything like that, but it is a good thing for the campus. So that is the budget update for today.
I'd like, could we go back to the thank you so much, Randy, this slide. I just want to say the potential state allocation changes. One of the things that's working really well at the state board level is we're working with the union leadership, both the faculty and classified, to just address these potential allocation reductions, particularly in COLAs. And so we're all working collaboratively and jointly to address that with all of our legislators because of the impact it would have on higher education, particularly community and technical colleges, and on our own individual colleges. So that's really important because right now they are being seen as a way as a cost-saving measure for public employees. And so I just want to let you know that's going on at the state level, and we're jointly working State Board of Community and Technical Colleges with all our union leadership at the state level. Next slide, please, Randy.
All right, thanks to everyone for these wonderful updates that we were provided today. I want to make you aware of a couple meetings coming up before we get into our question and answer period. So the next board meeting is going to be on Wednesday, February 24th 4:30 p.m. for the regular session. That will be on Zoom. And our next campus update meeting is going to be February 26th, and that is 2021, at 1:30, and that'll be on Zoom as well. So that is our upcoming meetings. So we have some questions that have come in, and as we have done before, I will copy them into a Word document so everybody can see them. Looks like we have 5 that have come in already. Go ahead and use that question and answer submission feature on Zoom to get the questions to us. And let me switch over here. Let's start with the questions. Okay, our first question asks, if students come from out of state or out of country, but plan to live on campus, what will the quarantine look like?
Great question. I'm wondering, not sure who would have the best answer to that. I don't know if Mary would.
Sure, and I'm happy to address it. So out of state and out of country both would require a 14-day quarantine, and we are fortunate that we have some quarantine rooms set aside within the residency hall so they can do that quarantine while being in the residency hall.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Moving along to the next question. What's the high demand money you said that would go away in June? What can we use that for?
So the high demand money was part of an allocation that the legislature put together for the 1921 biennium. It's like the nursing funds that were also in that package. And it is only slated for this biennium to be distributed. And it deals with those programs that are included in the high demand fields. And so I'm going to ask Philip to talk a little bit more about that. It can only be used for looking at dispersing, I think it's about a little over $770,000 to those categories in the SIP categories that are determined at the state level to be high demand. So Philip, do you want to talk more? I know you've been working with the faculty union on the reopener.
Sure. I would just quickly restate, Cheryl, you're right on top of it. 771,000 was the amount. The way that we identified that is the state even gave us some feedback about using SIP codes, and that these are the standard SIP codes that this is usually attached to. That, excuse me, data was provided to the college just in terms of guidance. Other colleges have already bargained this, so we have that data. Just in terms of how they've done so. And that's the same guidance they gave, Cheryl, that you commented on, specifically to be utilized in these key areas only. How we do that within this context of the year, we have yet to begin bargaining to know that. It would most likely result in a stipend, especially if it is 1 year money. Wouldn't be a change to the contract. It is for faculty. So it's directed to faculty, it's directed specific to SIP codes. And we're yet to begin bargaining, but we're hopeful that we've got a good setup and system to manage that quickly and to be able to issue payments to people who are in those kind of impacted areas.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. Next question. Again, we are adding administrative positions that do not produce any revenue for the college, while getting rid of faculty who generate tuition and FTE revenue. How is this a logical formula for going forward when the state appears to be cutting significant funding to colleges regarding furloughs and COLAs?
So I know that we've done a lot of reorganization, and it's a lot to maintain and to keep all in our heads. And the positions that we're looking at were part of a reorganization and redistributing positions. We were very mindful, particularly when we were making those kind of reductions of positions, to ensure that we were doing it in a way that did not increase administrative positions. So Philip, a lot of those are in your area. I'm wondering if you might want to talk a little bit about that and the reorganization that happened.
My mouse was being funny. Sorry, I'm here. So there were a couple that happened over time. I don't know if this question is specific to something someone heard recently, but I can comment on three general categories. One is the relationship to executive dean, associate deans that has come up. We gave that feedback last spring when it was done. It was done in mind to utilize current existing admin exempt positions and budget lines to do so. So we didn't add any additional exempt positions. We did move positions around, but we didn't add any additional dollars at that time. And I still hold that is true. As we moved into this year, and it might be, I'm not sure, again, time boundness of people being concerned. I don't believe we significantly hired for any positions in fall quarter. I don't remember doing it because I don't think we've been hiring. We are going to be hiring, I did mention earlier today, Director of Enrollment, which is a replacement for Chris Melton. So that's a replacement position.
Philip,
And
I think they might be asking about the one presented in the slides that were just up. We added a DEI executive director. I'm not wrong, but that was in the presentation. Yep. So I'm guessing that may be where this question was headed.
And that's fair. And I think that Cheryl, you might comment a little further on that one, and just in terms of kind of perhaps where dollars resources came from.
Sure. Yeah, so that was part of, we did have a executive director of diversity. And this is a very important position that we need on our campus to help build the professional learning and address a lot of issues that we know we currently have and challenges. That position is not at the same salary level as the current one. It is focused, laser targeted on diversity and equity, inclusion training, and professional learning for our faculty, staff, and administrators in support of all other DEI efforts that are happening on campus. But we don't have anyone. We need that position, and that was a decision that was made. We had a position, and so that is really where we felt that we needed to continue to have that position at the college, particularly at a time when it's so important to be focused and building the capacity of and the resilience of all of us to be able to deliver at a level that we don't currently have.
Thank you, President Roberts. Going on to our next question. Will admin exempt receive COLA increases in July that were postponed as a result of the budget crisis?
So thank you for that question. Right now, it's not looking likely that there's going to be any budget COLAs for anyone. And that was what was stated in the couple of slides at the very end that Vice President Beck shared, that COLAs are going to be suspended if the governor's budget moves forward and the legislature agrees with it. All COLAs will be suspended. So unfortunately, the postponed COLA would not be available.
Cheryl, can I just clarify that when you're saying that you are, we're differentiating between COLAs that are already in place. So those that received a COLA last July, the 2.8% for faculty and the 3% for classified staff will continue. Those are in our contracts and they are permanent additions to the salary for those employee groups. However, the funding is may no longer be provided by the state, which is the second part of what you said. But we wouldn't be taking back money from the classified or faculty for COLA they've already received.
Yeah, this is just for the admin. The question is just, I believe it's just about the admin exempt.
All right, thank you very much. The next question. The college just cut the faculty and classified workers in Running Start. Now the college is hiring a director of advising, Running Start, and first-year programs. Will that director be doing any of the work that the laid off Running Start faculty and classified staff were doing?
I'm wondering, Philip, thank you so much.
Yep. That is a good question. We appreciate that, and that is not our intention. We've identified the work. The work identified for Running Start was, as an area, was we met about that a couple months ago. Frankly, the work was separated out between that which that included some financial management, that which was kind of a process of forms, what was classified, what might be higher level, and as a relationship to leadership, what would go to the dean. Some of that may go to the director as a relationship to managing program coordination back with Running Start schools, things of that nature. The processing of paperwork is going to be done internal to other classified positions as they were already being relegated. And again, some of the work for Running Start, faculty and staff for the advisor in particular, again, was part of the plan to be able to have all other current advisors pick up Running Start students. So rather than having a singular, have others also pick up Running Start. So that was planned ahead, not planned to be rolled into the director's work.
Thank you. Next question. Philip mentioned setting targets around markets. What is an example of a market? How are these targets being determined?
A really good question. And I think that as an aside, President Roberts, I think we've been asked several times this by the board, and I think we're getting ready to start bringing them some information around this as well. Yeah, thank you for the nod. Okay. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. So, and if as typically happens perhaps in this broad forum, remember when I say this is an example. It isn't maybe what we're going to do. So with clarity, it's an example. Okay. But choices that people make in terms of markets include things like identifying, for example, that one of our traditional populations includes high school students. You then look backward at the high school student population that you have related to your area. For us, we have a service area. We have a set number of high schools in our service area. And we have on average, expected % of students that we pick up who become Shoreline students from that market. That could be Running Start as a subcategory, but broadly as a set of students, new students and returning. Setting a target around that then looks at that percentage and looks at, for example, other markets, so our competitors, which could be Everett, Edmonds, but are around us. And in general, what is their % pickup of students from their service district? And so that becomes kind of a marker for us, where then we can set a target to say, are we within our standard of our peers or not? And if we're not, can we set a target to then achieve a higher number of those students to increase our overall student population? So that's an example of how we would do that. Being more targeted and specific, where we haven't finalized any of that. Some of that is a relationship to us also assessing our overall market. What is the Shoreline Service District? Who is in it? Using both external data like MZ data about workforce needs, workforce demands, students in high schools, adult students, continuing ed students, knowing who's in our market, knowing who's interested in our programs, and then setting targets around them, which could include increases in our adult ed or adult education student market through BETA and ESL, but also through continuing ed, but also through our traditional programs. So a lot of students return, a specific workforce focus, a specific basic skills focus. And even this is the body of work around, if anybody ever wants to talk to Samira Pardonani, this is her entire life, is setting targets for international students. So that gives you some examples. This is a lot more detailed. If people want to know more, I'm happy to share it with them. You know, maybe in a different meeting or a different forum.
Randy, I see Martha has come on. Did you want to make a comment, Martha?
Would echo everything Philip just said. I think that's great. I mean, broadly, a market is just sort of a group of people or consumers that may be looking for a particular type of educational service. So we are in that process now of just outlining that, and it really comes from all those different composite of data sources that Philip mentioned. And so we know of particular importance. We know kind of the recent high school graduate group is a large population right now that is looking for different educational information out there in the world. So that's a big priority for us. And then dislocated workers are obviously another big group. So there's many more than that. We're also looking at historically underrepresented populations and figuring out how we can best reach folks that we haven't reached before and bring them to Shoreline as well. So it's ongoing work, but it's essentially, trying to figure out the best match between who's out there that we can provide our services to and how do we connect with them.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you, Philip. Next question. So, can you hire more faculty and staff with the high demand money?
Cheryl, do you want to, I can answer, do you want to answer? With respect, clearly, if we chose to do so, we could, but it is, again, right now, it's an annual allotment. And we're very unclear about annual allotments, which means we could hire, it'd be, and the money would go away. So it probably would not be a good idea to do so because the money will be swept. I mean, it won't return as a budgeted item. Cheryl, Dr. Roberts, do you understand something different?
Exactly. I think it all depends on when how the reopener goes and when it's settled. That's the other thing, because we just have between now and June 30th to disperse the money.
Thank you. Going along to our next question. I've heard that there is currently a shortage of people to help staff COVID check-in stations on campus to the extent that students are being offered the opportunity to work shifts. But I've also heard that there are some classified staff that are asking for work projects. Can you speak to whether this is true? And if so, why those individuals are not being asked to fill in the gaps? Are the right people not being made aware of this?
Well, I know that we've had a call out. I see that Don's come on as well, and I know Veronica's been doing this as well. We have looked at and surveyed people in different departments across the campus to see who is available. We know that people are fully engaged, and now that we're in CTC Link, it's even at a higher level. So Don, do you want to, and Veronica, do you want to talk about how we've done that? And we're always open to providing the kind of work opportunities for people who are here, and why we're looking now at student support to provide in the access points when people are coming on campus. Don and Veronica.
Yeah, and we did actually advertise the positions out, hoping to pull in some of these part-time and hourly staff. So it was advertised out, folks had an opportunity to come in and apply for it. I think that part of the challenge that we're facing in filling these positions is that people are being so good about staying home that they come in and they do their work and then they go back home again, just like they're supposed to. And what that means is that we don't have very many staff on campus that are not working really hard at what they're doing on campus so they can get back home. So it really did leave us with fewer people to fill these positions. We did first request part-time hourlies, and I think we found one, if I'm remembering correctly. And then as a last resort, we did put the call out to student workers. And with that, we got a few more, and we believe that we have all of the shifts filled now. Veronica, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just looking at this question, if somebody out there is looking for work, or if you are talking with someone who says, man, I could just pick up a project or two, please let us know, because we have plenty of things you can help us with. And this could be one of them, because obviously filling staff time would come before paying additional money out to hire someone else to do it. So thank you for that question. And please let us know who you are.
Thank you. Okay, the next one was two questions that I've tried to put together here. This is about the humanities department, which experienced a RIF, not the humanities division, Heard that humanities classes are perhaps just one class, which had a good enrollment coming into winter quarter, were completely canceled this winter due to lack of faculty after a rift. Is this true? We had a couple of things get pasted on the end of that. So that's the submission.
I was trying to read through that, Randy. It looks like it was just duplicated.
Right, yeah, I just, yeah, it copied
Okay.
in there or pasted in there twice, so.
All right, thank you for that. Not that, so I'm reading through the question, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, heard that. To a lack of, yeah. So there was a consideration on, I believe, a particular course that was being offered, of which we were trying to identify options for continuing to support the class that was both this current quarter and future quarter. Those options did not work out, which did result in the cancellation of the course. Part of the RIF was that we would be, for people, for clarity's sake, the RIF in the humanities position, as we did it, although not ideal, was accomplished because the humanities courses attached to that particular RIF unit are those that are covered in a kind of a general education section, of which other courses can provide the same general education requirement. So if this class is not available, other classes are available that do fulfill the requirement. And in order for us to manage a budget that was very strict and tight, that is how we proceeded. And then in doing so, for that particular quarter, this was the decision that was made. And then I believe they tried to identify options for students to take that other or those other classes that would still fulfill the requirement. I think I answered the question that was being asked.
Thank you, Philip. The next question. The college's 2016 to 2021 strategic plan is coming to an end in about 5 months. President Roberts, can you reflect on areas where you have led us effectively since 2016 and the ways that you may have fallen short, if any? As you look to your future as our president, what direction do you plan to lead the college in during the 2021-2022 and beyond?
You know, I was reflecting on this exact thought over the winter break, and as we move into the end of our strategic planning cycle. And if we were not in COVID, let me start with that, we would have started that in the fall. And all of our energies right now are really focused on what's really before us, which is managing, working remotely, and getting our guided pathways moving forward, and our work on ensuring that we have the financial stability to undergird the work going forward for the college. So some of the things that for folks to really thoughtful question, and I want to bring this forward. In fact, we're going to be talking about this at executive team about where we are with our strategic plan and what's the next phase as we think about reopening the college. What kind of energy do we have to really focus on a big, involved 21 5-year plan and what's kind of really before us. But as I think about it, the 3 areas, the 3 major goals are around student learning, from application through enrollment, through the learning experience, through completion. And one of the things I think I feel very prideful of is that we now have a much clearer website that is helping our students navigate that better. We understand more of the pinch points that have not worked for students, and we have a clearer plan for bringing people into the college and helping them be successful. And we're continuing to work on those experiences around, and as you see in guided pathways, around advising and around the first year experience. Orientation was built during that time, during the plan. And really bringing and coalescing departments together to help see the students' experience and how it could be improved. And we saw that change. We saw students being able to navigate more easily the college itself. So that piece I think is really working. We've got a lot of, we heard in our accreditation that we was mostly around assessment and around learning outcomes. And the more that we understand how learning outcomes are seated, not just in the courses, but in certificates and degrees, that also is really important in the learning experience for our students. So that work was begun and will continue on into the next cycle as we go forward. I would say the other piece, just, and I'll speak more eloquently about it and more thoughtfully about it in the coming months, but around discipline excellence and getting ourselves prepared for the CTC link, which is the greatest improvement that continuous improvement project that not just our college, but the state has undertaken, that's going to really revolutionize how we do all of our work. And we're now deep into that implementation of it. And it's going to touch every facet of our college as we know it. And I'm pleased that that was something that the college was very interested in, not just, you know, updating forms, but really kind of revolutionizing how the experience of, again, the student, our students, which is always at the heart of what we do, is being done. And so I think we set that up very well, but it's going to be the hard work ahead of us for the next 12 to 15 months. And it's going, as I said, it's going to take us in ways that help us communicate better and help us deliver that. I would say that, you know, having these kinds of forums, I mean, I would talk with my president's colleagues and I would say, well, we have a campus update and we have a day at a glance and we have communications go out on a regular basis to all of our employees. And they were envious of that. And we've taken advantage of it. Can it be better? Absolutely. But we're trying to give out as much information as possible where we can and get back that information. One of the things I think we can do better, and we heard in our accreditation, is showing how we're utilizing the data or the information or recommendations that are given from all of you who have a unique vantage point from where you serve, where you lead in the college, where you teach in the college. I want to do a better job, and we feel like we did we just need to do a better job of communicating how we're utilizing those recommendations ongoing in a thoughtful way that's clear and direct. And I think the last are around the 3 E's, which are ecological integrity, now called ecological sustainability, our economic vitality or economic stability, and social equity. We have work to do on those areas, and that is something that we will continue to integrate into our guided pathways work, which is so important in the life of our college, and integrating that so that students have a seamless understanding of their possibilities of degrees and understanding how to do that in a way that's thoughtful and creates curiosity, but also is easily time bound so that they are not just a swirling. And so the commitment that has been made among the different guided pathways teams is really impressive. And I think that's going to be something going forward that we're going to be utilizing. So I really see the first 5 years, we're really setting the infrastructure. As I always say, you know, I'm a structural organizationalist. And so creating that infrastructure, which is never the glitzy piece of it. We've got a lot of that in place that now we can have the departure points to take data. The last thing I would say is that utilizing data, we've gotten better at that, and we're going to be with our institutional assessment and data management department that is led by Dr. Maring. We're going to be showing, we did share with the board, they have their own dashboard about how the college is doing. Now we want to roll that out and share it with the college. We have some great wins, as I mentioned in my opening comments, and we have areas where we are struggling and students are struggling. And when we share that, then we'll create strategies and initiatives, and then we'll see how much progress we're making. That will help us move not just from working hard, but seeing the efforts of our work yield positive results for our students. So those are just my thinking. I appreciate this. I've been really thinking about this over the last, well, since fall term, but the last few weeks and really the last month, and how do we begin to create some energy around what's next for Shoreline, and how do we lead forward, and we'll have more of those conversations together as a campus. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, President Roberts. Next question asks, when will the Director of Advising, Running Start, and First Year programs be posted?
There's going to probably be a two-phase process to this, and here's why. If any of the teams are currently working in enrollment, financial aid, advising, or any of those other areas, they're, as we all are, so I don't want to make sound like no one else is, they're undergoing a lot of stress with all the transition of CTC Link and the loss of positions. One of the concerns we have is to backfill as quickly as possible. So for this particular position, we may fill immediately with an acting role if we can find a person with the right background, but it will be filled more permanently on a regular hiring permanent basis, most likely beginning July 1. So we'll probably see an immediate, which will be an internal posting, acting. We've done them before, but that should not be assumed to be the permanent position or the permanent person in the position. We will do that in a regular process, most likely for that person to start on July 1 of this year.
Thank you. The next question asks, what's the point of the high demand money if it's only for 1 year?
So I can start with the response to that. Our money is given through the legislature in a biennial bunch. So we get an allocation for a 2-year stretch of time. That money was given to us in the 1921 biennium. And so with the hope that it would continue, just like the nursing funds was giving in that, and all of our money is given in a 2-year fund allocation. So everything, that the money was given prior to COVID. Things are looking up. We had probably the best allocation and distribution from the state that we've had in a decade. And so we were on a good ascent. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So it's very difficult now to see like, oh yeah, why is this money for 1 year? But we always get all of our money, unfortunately, in 2-year chunks, because the legislature cannot give out more money than they have appropriated. And they do it in 2-year cycle.
Thank you. The next question. We've seen an 8% decline in international student enrollment between 2015 and 2018 at U.S. colleges, even before the pandemic caused a 27% drop this year at Shoreline Community College. Does a college plan to diversify its revenue sources beyond the pandemic in response? If so, how?
So we were beginning to diversify our dependence on international students, because right now every dollar that we get, it's put into operations, and that is not a great solution to operating a college. And so we started that actually in 2016, when we started to grow our domestic enrollments and design a strategic enrollment management plan, which we did not have. And we were doing a good job until things started to change about 2018-19. And so right now we are looking at diversifying our enrollment strategies, evidenced by what Vice President King was saying in terms of looking at targets. But the other piece is not just enrollments, it's retention. And our retention rate is not as high as it can be. And that's one of the things we really need to focus on, not just bringing in people, but keeping them. And so that's another piece of the enrollment full spectrum of what we need to focus on. I know that Vice President King and the International Department is looking at it, and where they're thinking it should be a part of our college, but we also need to make sure that we have a diversified portfolio so that it all of the, because we are such a small, we have such a small footprint in terms of our district. We're what's called a destination college. People come and go past lots of other districts oftentimes to get to us with a lot of similar programs. And so we have done, I think, a great job of identifying what we're really good at, who we are, and marketing. Brand identity is super important in this. And I think we've done a really excellent job of bringing that out of who we are as a college that's distinctive about Shoreline, that we're all prideful of. But we are working, and we will be bringing to the board a plan for at least 21, 22 and going forward of how we're going to address exactly this question about diversification, not just domestic and international, but all of our markets, and how we can create a more sustained enrollment a plan for us, because it is how we run the college. Philip, do you want to have any other comments or?
No, Cheryl, I think you were pretty succinct about it. Yeah, I probably wouldn't add more, and I think that the college has been asking, so I think that part of our plan internally is to start unveiling what some of that might look like to the college, just so they can see how we're setting targets, even what the international plans look like, and we can do that in the next budget update or another forum, however you would like to do so.
I'd like to roll that out a little closer to spring when we're close. We've got a lot of data points. We're still in the legislative session. As we say, we're sharing everything that's out. Those things are being debated every day. And so it'd be nicer to get closer to sort of the April timeframe, May timeframe, and we'll have more. But this is a very, very critical question in our planning.
Moving on to our next question. Hello, can you please remind us of the general duties of executive directors, deans, and associate deans?
Wow, I'm looking at Veronica and Philip.
Sure. So executive directors and directors are administrative unit leaders. The difference between an executive director and a director really has to do with scope of responsibility and the level of decision-making authority. So for example, you might see an executive director who has multiple areas or other programs underneath them. You might see an executive director who does a sole function that is impactful campus-wide, or it could just because of sheer volume of a program size. Usually executive directors are going to be on the operational side and less on like the student side or instructional side. Deans and associate deans are kind of the instructional or student service side, where you have your administrative leader for a particular unit or area, with deans having a division that's assigned to them, and the associate dean being an operational support person who doesn't have the decision-making level of the dean position, but is intimately involved in carrying out all the duties for administration of that particular division.
Thank you, Veronica. The next question asks, what will the executive director of DEI's priority and focus be for the first 90 days?
That's a very good question. In fact, I've given that to a small work group within the Inclusive Excellence Steering Committee to look at as well. As I mentioned, the lion's share of this position is around professional learning and helping us look at our policies and procedures to ensure that they are student focused, and I'm looking at ways that create to limit and decrease the disparity in how we go about doing our work at the college. So I know there's going to be some policy and procedural work that's going to be done, but I really am looking to the work of the Inclusive Excellence Steering Committee to help drive those first 90 days. I do know that there will be a lot of listening and talking, but mostly listening sessions that will help to drive the work as well. One of the things that we're doing very consciously is, as we work on the day of learning, the DEILT group is also looking at ensuring that it tees up the work for the new director in a positive way. We want to make sure that there is a foundational piece of work that the person then can utilize to keep moving forward this important work that's at the heart of who we are as a college and is important in the life of our students and how we want to treat each other, but also the experience of our students as well. So very, very good question. Thank you for it.
Moving along to our next question. You said that the state allocation was one of the reasons for the cuts, but just said we had the best allocation from the state in a decade.
Yes, we did get a strong allocation. I was referring to our own allocation model that impacted the college. So prior to, I think it was 2015 or 16, I know Beta, she would have this data in front of her. We were able to count all of our international students as state funded FTE. And so I think it was in 15, 16 that changed and we could only count up to 2%. And so can you imagine those were millions and millions and millions of dollars that we no longer could count. And so that's when we got, when I came and got that message that was quite startling and alarming, honestly, to the college because we hadn't grown domestically in years. And so we began utilizing a strategic enrollment management. We redesigned our communications and marketing area, updated our website, and we were growing about 100 FTEs, which we needed to do to counterbalance the international loss in international students. So that's what I was referring to. We were not able to do that, and that was the original first reduction that we had in 1920. And then right on the heels of that, where we cut $2.3 million out of our budget to recalibrate ourselves. And then we had the COVID-19 pandemic, which then we had a steeper descent in enrollment loss. So you're absolutely right. We did have a great allocation from the state. We all got great in 1920. We had the King County salary increase, and we got COLAs and all kinds of things, and it was fantastic. And we actually got more money. We got the high demand money. We got the nursing dollars. We got money in guided pathways. It was just really a bumper year. And then, unfortunately, we saw the contraction because of COVID. So you're absolutely right. It was really great. And now we're seeing the wake of what happens when you are very dependent on sales tax to run a state. And so when people aren't working, there's not money. And when people aren't buying things, there aren't money. And so we're going to see quite a contraction in the 21-23 biennium.
Thank you. The next question. The executive assistant position, which recently opened under SES, is temporary. Will the position eventually be cut due to budget constraints?
I'm not familiar with what SES, that's
That's a position that's currently filled.
yeah.
I believe the current person in the position may be out on some kind of leave at this moment.
Mhm.
Can't really say anything more than that, but there isn't an intention to do that. And I think it's more a matter of saying, and certainly all positions are under consideration. Person hasn't left the position. And certainly we're looking at all positions as they relate to support that's needed for the college. That's as much as we've discussed it, but person is in an existing position, most likely on leave. Veronica, would you add anything different?
I mean, I'd just say it's a slightly different way of we have temporary support backfilling an employee on leave.
Okay, thank you, Veronica and Philip. Next question. Do you know the Board of Trustees' thoughts regarding the opinions classified and faculty rep unions have stated during Board of Trustees meetings?
Typically they share their points of view and their comments during the meeting. I'm not the spokesperson for the board. That's the role of the board chair. I'm trying to. I know they typically make a statement at the beginning of the meetings about what they've heard or where they are, or at the end of the meeting. And I think that's all I really can't speak for the board.
Okay. Next question. So if the new administrative positions are not an increase because of existing vacancies, shouldn't the available money be allocated to keeping revenue producing faculty in the near term?
Well, if, as we think about how we looked at the budget for this year and going forward, we always have to make sure that our revenue and our expenditures are such that it balances. And we're always looking at this question about do we have the right mix to be able to both run the college and to educate students and to serve them? So we always want to make sure that we're, as Vice President King said, we're always looking at every position. We're looking at all the work and where we are. We have where are some new opportunities we could be pursuing. And we look at all classifications of our employee groups as important in helping to both to educate, but also to retain our students. And it takes all of us across all employee groups to do that. So when we're looking at it at a holistic, not just in one classification.
Okay. That is all the questions that we have received this afternoon. So if there's nothing else, we can take a look at a special video presentation that Jeff Kashwa has shared with us. This is a video that his ensemble group has put together. We shared it at the board last night, and I've actually watched it a couple other times because it's just beautiful. So we'll share that with you. It's about 4 minutes long. If you have any other questions, we may have a moment or two at the end to address those. But for now, enjoy this video.
My eyes, it's something that I wanna love, weighs heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be to face. And when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me seemed impossible to face, and when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way, then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Lovely day, 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 lovely lovely day, lovely day, lovely day. Lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day. A lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day.
All right, my thanks to Jeff Cashua for sharing that and putting that together, and to his amazing students and musicians that took their time to record that, edit it together, and just present that to the college. If you do want to watch it, it is on YouTube. You can search Shoreline Community College Ensembles and Lovely Day, and you should be able to find it on YouTube. So you may want to watch it again. I know I have several times. So.
Have a lovely day.
I wanted to just add that it's on social media too. So if you look at Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for the college, you'll find it there too.
All right, a couple other question submissions came in all about the video, thanking Jeff, thanking his students. So yes, a wonderful shout out to them. I believe that brings us to the end of the session today. We will get this recording posted, captioned, and put out to you in about a week. You can look for the announcement on that. President Roberts, any words as we close out this afternoon?
Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Thanks everyone for staying with us. And I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you.